Aloha! Welcome everyone to the Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com. I'm your host, Jason Schwartz. You may remember I was just doing interviews of candidates running for office, including myself running, but now we're, down toward the end, and I only am doing a couple of interviews, and one of them is this gentleman that some of you know, probably most of you know. He's been a movement. BissenMovement.com. Richard Bissen, welcome to our show.
Aloha, Jason. Thank you for having me today.
Public access television is interesting. It's public access, just like we all have access to being in the election and voting. I'm hoping more and more people realize that they have an opportunity and a responsibility all wrapped in together to see who the candidates are. And that's why I've been doing these shows. And this gentleman, Richard Bissen, some of you know, has been a judge here locally in the circuit court for how many years? 25, right?
17 years on the bench, 15 years at the prosecutors, altogether about 35 years, 34 years and 8 months.
Right. So, when you talk about what's going on Maui, if I talked about a cycle of people that are coming up to the line and trying to get better, but fall back, sort of like Humpty Dumpty, you're involved with bringing the bottom up, and you've really seen humanity close up. From being a judge is an interesting thing. You have to abide by a law, or as a mayor, you have to abide by bigger law, but you have your own freedom. How does that work? Like you in the county and all running the county, you're going to have an interesting position where you make roads as well as go on ones that are created. And any way you're approaching this, I know it's a big deal that suddenly you're a giant spot on the scene here. You've been suddenly making a presence. What is it that's driving you to do this, to run for mayor after such a distinguished career?
Well, that's an easy question for me to answer. The three reasons that I decided to put my hat in the ring were Lalakea, Naluahi, and Kilinahe. Those are the names of my three grandsons. I'm deeply concerned about the crisis we find ourselves in as local people trying to figure out a way to live in our homeland and struggling to do so. And some of it is external, some of it is, our own doing. And so when I mean our own is our government's doing. So I think the reason I decided to put my name in is that I have a set of skills that I have developed and honed over my career. I didn't know I was doing that in order to run for mayor because that was never the plan. However, I realize now looking back that none of these were coincidences. As a mayor, you have to make decisions that impact your community. As a judge, you make huge decisions, real world, life-changing decisions for people. And none of these are black and white decisions. People think they are, but in fact, you serving as a juror probably understood all the nuances that happened when you were sitting as the jury, deciding what the law intended, what it says, how it's interpreted. So while there are certain circumstances that give very little discretion to a judge, that's a very small percentage. The majority of instances, the judge has a pretty wide discretion, anywhere from putting someone on probation with no jail up to 5 or 10 or 20 years in prison. So there are times where you have to use your life experience, your lived experience, and like you said, have an understanding of humanity. You see people who have stumbled, who have, it's at probably the worst point in their lives. They've made a mistake or, accused at least of making one, and you're there to try to, resolve it and have folks move on and do better, improve.
Well, and I'm sure that now as mayor, I've had a couple of people say to me, "Oh, he was great in court. He did this, he did that." So I love the fact that you're an independent thinker and don't just go by the rule, because the rule has interpretation and ways of doing things can be done outside of a box. That's really
We
terrific.
should always use our, you know, everything we have available to us. We should use all of the information we have so we can make the best decision, not only for the individual standing in front of you, but obviously for the entire community. And I think as mayor, our job is always to keep Maui first, Maui County, Maui Nui. What is in the best interest of the county of Maui? And that's been my guiding principle when I was involved in the Juvenile Justice State Advisory Council for 7 years, when I sat on the Violence Against Women's Act committee, statewide committee for 6 years, when I was a big brother before I started having my own children. And then I switched to be on the board, the Maui United Way. I sat on every Parent Teachers Association for each of my daughters, from Paia School, Lihikai School, Kamehameha schools. So I've been very involved in our community. I did a series of videos on parenting, on choices that we put out in the late 90s or mid 90s. So, I mean, this isn't a new thing. I didn't just sort of fall out of the sky into community issues. I've been involved in community issues from as far back as 1987, when I started at the prosecutor's office. And like I said, there's been a lot of experience gained, but a lot of community involvement.
And I'm putting words in your mouth, but only a few to lead you. I know that when you go in, you got to look around and see morale. I don't really know morale in the department. You're going to see what you got. And there's too much work for too little people and too little money to do too many things that we have to do. And it's always a matter of making choices. In your debate with Mike Victorino, I liked when the question came about, what can you do to reduce the budget? And you thought for a second, and the thing that you can control the most is what you spend in your office. Do you have a team in mind already, or how are you going to go about this thing? First, I imagine your priorities are probably set. Do you have an agenda going in, or are you kind of going to come in and see what's up?
No, of course, we have a vision. Our vision from our broad vision is that our keiki and our mopuna can remain here on Maui if they choose to do so. That's vision number one. Our vision is that we'll have a safe county, especially for our kupuna. We have an aging population. Our population, thankfully, are living longer. And so we must not only just care for public safety, but in particular for our kupuna. And then, of course, we have an obligation to provide our next generation with the natural and cultural resources that we inherited. We have a responsibility to care for that and pass it on as well, or better if we can, than we found it. Those are the top visions that are going to drive our policies, that are going to drive our momentum. You asked a few questions, so I'll try to answer the ones I recall. I do not have a team of directors or deputy directors in mind, and the reason for that is, what I do have in mind are folks that I would like to, and these are people who are not applying for county jobs, to vet people who apply. And the way we want to approach this is, I want to recruit talented people to come to the county to be leaders, or to work with the county. We want to retain perhaps some of the current people that are working in the county, and I'm talking about directors and deputies, appointed positions. Of course, all the folks who are civil service don't have anything to worry about, as their jobs are protected by their union contracts. And then the third group would be people who just, without any prompting, want to join the Bissen administration, the Bissen team. And so I see us getting applicants from all three of those pools: recruit, retain, and those that are interested. The problem with naming a director in November or even, soon after the election is that you preclude anyone else who might be interested from applying because they say to themselves, "Oh, you've already picked." So while you might think, well, that's a decisive leader who can pick their team before even being inauguration. But on the other hand, did you really try to find the best, most talented people you can? So my way of thinking is to attract as many people as possible. You just never know. You might overlook or pass over that one person that would have made all the difference in the cabinet. And so I know other people think otherwise because some people see political campaigns as a time to pay off debts or to reward favors. And, I do understand. I'm not naive. I've worked in government for many, many, many years. I've worked in the back of the house. I've been a director. In fact, I'm the only one who's ever been the director who's run in of the 8 people that initially ran. I ran 2 different county departments under 2 different mayors, and then I was number 2 at the AGs, and I ran the Department of Public Safety, which at the time had about 2,400 employees. In 2004, that was more than the county had at that time. The county probably has about as many now. And so I think I understand large corporations. I understand small group dynamics. I understand morale issues. I don't think you'll find anyone who's worked with me over the last 35 years who will say that morale was low when I was in charge. In fact, I think you'll find exactly the opposite. And I understand about caring for our employees, caring for our workers. And you're right. People have to sometimes do more with less. But I think everybody who applies for a job with the county understands that this is public service. This is public service. If it's about the money, people can go into the private sector, private business, of course. They're free to do that. But you have people that join nonprofits. You have people that do volunteer. You have people that join, do public work for the government. And that's the kind of person we want to attract. Somebody who understands that while you do get a salary and you do get benefits, that much of what we do is, if not entirely what we do, is serve the public. That's what we signed up for.
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, what kind of questions? You've heard questions. It's now late in the race. You've heard them from everywhere. This, that, the. When you have things that'll come to you, like you talked about kapunas and wanting opportunities for the future and the health and safety. Health is gigantic around here, and some of those things are state issues, and some of them are county. And what about people that don't have a car, they're homeless, and they just saw this new bill come in? Hey, we're going to open a parking lot if you got a car. Come on in and sleep. I remember more than many times, there are so many homeless people that I keep wondering, is there any plan to help? It's almost like there's too many people for too few services. Anything? I thought of that as like an emergency category, not in the short, it's like a whole different category. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that? I'm just curious, because that and the medical, I watch Maui Memorial pushing people that are homeless out the door, and lots of different services that I see people that somehow are marginalized. And I don't know if, like I say, as a mayor, I'm bringing up things that are a little different, I think, because the fact that I'm speaking to someone who has a knowledge and capacity, both at state and local here, I just wanted to sort of get your hit on the whole thing.
Well, of course, you understand this is a very highly charged subject for people. Yeah. And like anything else we do, whether we're talking about tourism, water, homeless, housing, everyone is impacted individually, dependent upon their situation. If a homeless individual lives right outside your door, you're more impacted by someone who lives miles and miles away from somebody in that situation. And so your reaction is going to be different, and the resolution you seek might also be different. The first thing we have to understand when we talk about the unsheltered community is that one size does not fit all. The first thing we have to understand is that most people who are unsheltered are dealing with some sort of trauma. Some people are dealing with, and I think we see the visible, but there are the invisible population. I think we see someone who might have a mental illness, for example. Very obvious to most people, the person is suffering from a mental illness. And we will find people who appear to be under the influence of substance abuse, a substance. And so they'll be immediately categorized as, you know, a drug user, someone with mental health. And of course, you're going to have people with both dual diagnosis patients, people that have that suffer from both of those. But then you have people, and the trauma I'm talking about is maybe there was a death in their family, maybe there was a divorce, a loss of a job, something that happened to them, not something that they did, but something that happened to them. And to that category, you know, they may not know what services are available. They may not feel comfortable going to a family or friend, and they just try to gut it out and deal with it. These aren't people who wanted to be without a home or wanted to be in that situation. I think there's a very small percentage of people who choose this lifestyle, a very small percentage. But I have to believe, Jason, that we have had unsheltered people since the beginning of time. I don't know that this is something that our goal should be to eliminate it completely, or if we are trying to manage to the best of our ability. So, having said that, and with the lens of someone who started the Maui Mental Health Court in 2013, the Maui Drug Court in the year 2000, I have, I think, an informed background. I understand many situations why someone is where they are, but it is not a crime to be homeless. It is not a punishment to be homeless. It is in most instances it's something that happens to someone. But I think what we can do is deal with those folks that do have cars. I'm glad the county adopted the idea that we had been talking about since as far back as January, that one of the ideas we had was to talk with the Department of Transportation Airports Division, try to convert some of those rent-a-car lots that, you know, they had moved to the garage, the rental-car garage, and they had some open spaces there. Now, what is a rental-car space? It's mostly parking spaces. There's a small administration building. There's a fence. I thought if we could have working homeless people that are working, have jobs and cars, but don't have homes, if we can give them a safe place to stay at night, they can drive into these fenced-off areas. We can provide security. And that administration building, we would make sure there are showers, washers, dryers, a place to plug in electronic devices. Bring in counselors. Yes, change their work hours. Have them work the evenings. And have them, of course, try to get people into housing. Find out what is lacking. What is it that they're needing? For some people, it's the first month's and the last month's rent. You know, we don't have as much housing as we think we do, obviously, for people in transition. Maybe somebody needs a dental appointment. Maybe somebody needs a driver's license renewal. You know, what kind of, maybe they have a court case to resolve, pay a ticket. So what I'm saying is we could provide services to this population. Now, the county tried to rush that idea through before the election and tried to get it at the Cameron Center for October 1st. It is still not, I think it's October 27th, and I don't think that that's happened yet because they're all sort of little things that, and again, it was rushed. It was not planned out as the idea we had. But again, I wasn't trying to get this in as an election, little check off. It was something that somebody asked me the question, and I gave them what I thought was a long-term answer, not something that we do, something that we do under my administration. Well, obviously, the current administration was trying to see if they could get a hold of that. And obviously they agreed it was a good idea, but at a different location. I don't know how good of a location that is when you think about the Cameron Center being an operating, functioning set of offices where people work early, people work late. Some people thought it was a good idea being next to the police station. I don't know how many people that are challenged with housing who want to be next to a police station, if their car is not current, if there's an outstanding bench warrant, if there's other issues. And not everybody wants to be next to the hospital. I was told that that location, somehow the proximity to both of those made it a better choice. I actually think most of these folks want to be in a more private area. They want to be left alone. They want to drive in. They want to have a good night's rest and then drive to work and then have a place to go to in the evening. That's really mostly what people want.
Right. You know, I mean, when I'm sitting here with you, my mind goes to like, I'm talking like a 75-year-old lady who's crippled and can't walk. They don't have room at the shelter for her. The medical is Malama Ikeola, where the doctors maybe get 10 or 15 minutes, and they have so many people. The quality of medical care is limited by just the sheer volume of need. Is there anything that a mayor can do to help the state? I don't know whose responsibility. I guess it's the humanity piece. It's like if you see someone that needs help, take it upon yourself to give a little help, and the help services would have less help needed because we all kind of get involved in our humanity. I don't know how to deal with the fact that there are so many people that I'm seeing daily that just can't find services. And again, a mayor can't do everything. Everyone thinks, oh, the mayor's responsible. I know, but I'm just curious how to deal with that issue because
Well, you asked that in a couple different ways, Jason. So, for people to rely on their conscience and humanity to help fellows, that doesn't require any mayor. That doesn't require a pastor. That doesn't require a doctor. That requires conscience and the ability to be able to do that. Some people are tied up and caught up in their lives and are helping other people and can't help that person in front of them. But here's what a mayor can do, because the mayor can do something. Do you remember when there used to be teachers' cottages, like say on Lanai, for the DOE? There was a time where teachers who worked were provided with, I'm guessing it was a reduced rate or a rental rate for housing. And that's one of the ways we attracted teachers on Lanai, I can recall growing up. There was a police cottage there for the commander. There in Hana, there was a place for Hana, police officers to live in, similar to how we provide housing for firefighters because they're on duty 24/7. So there's a place that they stay in case when an emergency is called, they're right on the spot. I know recently there was some housing provided for the fire department employees out in Manae on the east end of Molokai. There was a property that was acquired. Again, the way the mayor can help is by trying to attract good doctors and nurses by providing housing. We need housing for our kama'aina. We need housing for our middle class. We need housing for the people that help our community to function. So if we want doctors, I mean, when you're talking about, oh, they only can get 15 minutes at Malama Ikeola, it's great that they can get 15 minutes at Malama Ikeola. I mean, that is a good thing because that means there's a doctor and there's a nurse. And what we need to prevent from happening is the exodus of doctors and nurses. Yep. We need to attract them. And of course, everything comes back to housing. Everything comes back to cost of living. And I think for us as a county, we can look ahead by looking back at what was once done. Now, I'm in favor of repurposing existing vacant commercial space. For example, Sports Authority, Lowe's, Safeway, Sears, the old Kahului Shopping Center, the old Department of Motor Vehicles at the Maui Mall. There are places that already have at least two key elements.
Yeah.
They have water and they have sewer. But what we got to consider, what if we built housing? Let's just say it's Sears, for example. We built apartments there and we made it attractive for the nurses who work right up the road at Maui Memorial Hospital, for the doctors who work right up the road, for the police officers who work at that station. Um, you know, if we can build our housing closer to where our workers need to go, that can also help us with eliminating traffic. For example, West Maui housing for West Maui workers to keep people having to drive from upcountry or the east side of Maui all the way to Kaanapali and Lahaina to work. So housing is one of the answers to the questions you're posing. Housing is the answer to homelessness. That's the definition. You got a house. Housing is the answer to homelessness and people who are unsheltered. Housing is one of the answers to attracting good quality employees. Housing is one of the issues to eliminating traffic by building it where people work. So although your question asks, how do we give services to a kupuna who's 75 years old that needs a doctor? It's interesting, but the answer goes back to housing. It goes, and the mayor can help in policies by looking for solutions, not saying, cannot, not waiting for somebody to bring the solution to your doorstep and say, here's what you do. I mean, it's going out and seeking it. And, I'm certain people in the past have tried to find answers to things, but I think one of the traps we fall into as people who in the past run for elective office is they think in 2 and 4 year cycles, Jason. Because what do you have to say or do for your next 2 year or 4 year office? And that's unfortunate because it doesn't reward people to think the way I'm thinking, which is 2 generations and 4 generations ahead. Because that doesn't make good political sense sometimes. Because you don't have your checklist of things to say, well, I did all these things. And even if you didn't do it, taking credit for something that somebody else started before you is what people feel is the key to getting elected or reelected. But my way of thinking, and again, why I'm not a politician, is what can we do today that somebody 20, 40, 60 years from now will thank us? What did we want somebody to do 20 years ago that would have prevented us from being in our situation that we're in now? So we need to think in those terms. I know that might sound naive or too pie in the sky, but we've not tried that. And the way we've been doing things is not working. It's not working.
Well, it's interesting. When I hear you speaking, first of all, I'm so thankful to hear that you have leadership qualities. You're not just waiting for someone to bring you an answer. You're out there aggressively looking and coming up with ideas and trying them and reaching. You only know me a little bit probably now, but 25, 30 years ago, I was sitting with Pundy. Now he's a statue at the Cultural Center. But it is no accident that they're MauiArts.org. I'm MauiArtsAndMusic.org. I have a plan, but things changed. My leaders local that, I came here in 88. I was still a newbie in 92 and 93. I maybe was on the planning board at Maui Electric planning our 20-year energy future, but I needed local partner and friends. And then Pundy, who heard my idea, I had booked the Cultural Center's original New Year's opening. I was going to do something. So we started bonding. Then he had a stroke. But these ideas, I hear there's something in you that says, hey, this guy's going to listen to ideas and take things and be open and aware to do things and be bringing, like you say, the mayor can do something. The mayor can lead.
You can really get a lot done when you don't worry about who takes the credit. That's one of the biggest things.
And you have the experience you have your own base. You're not looking for any spoils in this game. You're here to add to this community and been watching it for a long time and been in it for a long time, knee deep, and now you want to get up to your neck. You're going in, and
It's a
with
good
all
thing
the
I'm 6'3". It's a good thing I'm 6'3".
we're going to run out of time in a handful of minutes. What are the most important things that you'd like to leave with our viewers and voters? I hope we can do this after the election because I
Sure.
think an open dialogue is a really helpful thing, as your whole administration. You have a momentum that is, what do they say, palatable. You can feel it in the air. I imagine we never know what the election's going to do, but there's a when your people running against you now have started to form and circle with you, let me give you the floor,
Yeah.
please.
Well, thank you for saying. Jason, I'm not just from Maui. I'm of Maui. I mean, this is a place that I got my schooling, my customs, my traditions, my way of life, and so I very intimately connected to this land for generations, and I just want to see it prosper. I have had so much success. I have been so fortunate and blessed, but my foundation is this very place, and I would love for other people to have that same success. I don't think this is a situation where, again, in my situation, my opponent's been in control for 14 years, and still talking about starting something or getting something. I think by now we would have expected a lot more for us. And I understand how hard the pandemic hit. I was a leader at the courthouse while that was happening. We had to make big decisions. Um, we didn't shut down. We stayed open the whole time. We were the first county to reopen jury trials in the entire state of Hawaii, and that's because we were determined to do it. And we collaborated. We brought other groups together that don't normally come together, and able to open the first jury trial in the state of Hawaii. So, I bring a different view of that we can do it. The pandemic hit everyone hard, and I hear leaders talking about how hard it was to lead during that time. Well, anybody can lead when things are easy. Anybody can steer the boat in calm waters. But what people are looking for is who can steer it and park that boat in rough waters. And that's what I bring. I mean, we can't complain that there were storms and there's fires and that there's pandemics and who could have led. Well, everybody had to deal with that. But who had it the hardest? The citizens. The people who lost lives, lost loved ones, who lost homes, who lost businesses, who lost jobs, who moved away. Those are the real people who lost during the pandemic, not the leaders who were still getting paid, whether you made a good decision or a bad decision. So, I'm hearing it over and over and over. Well, it's so hard. It's so hard. Well, I think that it was hardest on our people. And, now we need to look in the future, look forward and think generationally. What can we do to improve our folks, their lot? And I've just been so blessed to have been raised here and to be from here in this place. And I'd like to, you hear everybody talk about giving back. You go to the mainland, you get your college degree, you come back, you get your law degree, you come back. And from the day I graduated law school after 7 years away, I've been back here in Hawaii the whole time on Maui. So I'm here to stay. I'm here to offer my services and whatever I've gained over my career to help our county. And thank you for having me on today.
It'd be my pleasure. I can hear your attention is being called. Need
Yeah.
to take them out. Rick Bissen, thank you. Richard, I guess I should call you Richard Bissen.
Rick is good. Anyone is good. A lot of people call me Rick. Yeah.
We haven't had a chance to talk about music, and I like to think of this as the opening of a new door that will have a lot of conversation and maybe take some action together, which would be very exciting.
Yeah, speaking of music, you'll see on our website an endorsement from Steven Tyler himself. You'll get to see that on there. But I know if Willie was here, the Kahaiali'i's been real close with me growing up and over the years. And, we played a lot of music with Willie when he was running the brunch. A few other friends, musician friends who are gone now. But when you just mentioned music, it triggered a whole other side of things. But
Yeah,
thank you for today, Jason.
you're welcome. Thank you all out there for listening and watching and being involved in Maui's things all these years. Like, we all have our different roles, and together we are really stronger. Thank you, Rick, for being here. It's really been a pleasure, and I look forward to having you here again and seeing you off camera besides.
All right. Enjoy
Message,
the rest of your day.
everyone.
Aloha.
Aloha.